Tonight, let's leave the noise of the day behind. Imagine you're curled up under a soft blanket, the room dark except for a faint, warm glow from a distant lamp. Outside, the wind whispers through the trees like a gentle lullaby. And there's no rush, no emails to answer, no tasks left undone, no thoughts that need fixing. For the next while, this space is yours, just yours. Buddhist monks have known for centuries that true relaxation isn't about shutting the mind off. It's about letting it settle, like leaves floating down to rest on a quiet lake. And tonight, we'll use 10 ancient Zen stories to help your mind do just that. These aren't just tales, they're little keys, each one unlocking a way to let go of stress, soften the grip of worry, and sink into that deep, quiet place inside you where peace lives. You don't need to remember every detail or get every lesson right away. You don't even need to keep your eyes open. Just let my voice wrap around you, like a friend sitting beside you, telling stories to help you drift. Sometimes, the simplest truths are the ones that calm us the most. Truths about ordinary moments, about letting go of what we can't control, about finding peace not in something big, but in the small. Quiet now. Take a slow breath in and out. Feel your shoulders drop a little, your hands relax where they rest. Your mind might still be buzzing a little, maybe thoughts of tomorrow or memories from today. That's okay. We won't push them away. We'll just let the stories gently cradle those thoughts until they start to slow and soften and fade. Now let's begin this quiet journey together. Let your eyes close a little more if they haven't already. Feel the weight of your body pressing gently into the surface beneath your bed, your couch, whatever holds you now. Notice the air as it moves in through your nose, cool and soft, and out through your mouth, a little warmer, a little slower. There's no hurry here, no need to rush to the next thought or the next moment. We're just here together, about to step into a story that's been calming minds for over 1,000 years. This story takes place in a small Zen monastery in China, during a time when the air smelled of pine and wood smoke, and the days moved at the pace of sunlight sliding across the courtyard. The monastery was home to a monk named Master J. He was an old man by then, his hair white, his hands worn from years of tending to the monastery, but his eyes were bright, like he carried a little piece of the sky in them. People came from all over to see him, not because he had grand temples or spoke in loud, impressive words, but because there was something about him that made people feel calm just by being near him. They came with questions, big questions, the kind that keep you up at night. Questions about how to find peace, how to stop worrying, how to be better at life. And Master J, more often than not, he'd smile, pour them a cup of tea, and say, "Have tea. Let me paint that picture for you." Imagine walking up the stone path to the monastery. The gate is made of old wood, worn smooth by the hands of hundreds of visitors before you. You push it open, and it creaks softly, like it's greeting you. Inside, the courtyard is quiet, just the sound of a stream trickling in the corner, and a few birds chirping in the oak tree. You see Master Zhaozhou sitting on a wooden bench under that tree, a small clay teapot and a few cups in front of him. He looks up when he hears you, and he waves you over. You sit down, your hands a little clammy, your mind racing with all the things you want to ask. You've traveled so far, spent so much time thinking about your problems. about the job that's stressing you out, the argument you had with a friend, the fear that you're not doing enough with your life. You take a deep breath, ready to spill all of it, ready to beg for answers. And then Master Jiaozhou picks up the teapot. It's small, brown, with a little crack along the side, but it's well loved. He pours hot water into the cup in front of you. Steam rises, carrying the faint, earthy smell of green tea. The cup is warm in your hands when he sets it down. And then he says, "Have tea." Just those 2 words. Not a lecture. Not a list of things to do. Not a complicated explanation about enlightenment or virtue. Just have tea. Now, you might be thinking, what's the point of that? How does drinking tea solve all those big problems? But that's exactly the point Master Jiaozhou was making. So often, our minds are stuck in the past or the future. We're replaying a mistake we made yesterday, or worrying about a meeting that's coming tomorrow, or feeling guilty about something we didn't do last week. We're so busy thinking about our lives that we forget to actually live, then forget to notice the warmth of a cup in our hands, the smell of tea in the air, the way the sunlight is filtering through the leaves and making little spots on the ground. And when we're stuck in that cycle of overthinking, we can't relax. Our minds are like a wheel spinning too fast. We can't stop it, and it just makes us more tired, more anxious. Master Jiaozhou's "have tea" was a gentle nudge to stop the wheel, to come back to the present moment, because that's the only place peace lives. You can't find relaxation in the past. It's already gone. You can't find it in the future. It hasn't come yet. You can only find it right now, in the simple act of holding a cup of tea, in the taste of it on your tongue, in the quiet of that courtyard. Let's think about that for a minute. When was the last time you did something without thinking about anything else? Not scrolling through your phone while you eat, not worrying about work while you shower, not planning your day while you walk, just doing one thing fully. Maybe it was when you were a kid, coloring a picture and not caring if it was good, just enjoying the feel of the crayon on paper. Or maybe it was last week, when you sat outside and watched the rain, and for a minute you forgot about everything else. That's the feeling Master Jiaozhou was pointing to. That's the feeling of being present hand. That's where relaxation lives. So many of us think relaxation is something we have to earn. We think we have to finish all our work, clean the house, answer all our messages, and then maybe we can relax. But that's a trap, because there's always more work, always another message, always something else to do. Relaxation isn't a reward for being productive. It's a state of mind that we can choose right now, no matter what's on our to-do list. It's choosing to notice the warmth of the teacup instead of thinking about the emails we need to send. It's choosing to feel the air on our skin instead of worrying about the future. It's choosing to be here instead of somewhere else. Let's take a little pause here. I want you to bring your attention to your hands. Notice how they feel. Are they warm? Cool? Do you feel the weight of them resting on your lap or the bed? Now, imagine holding a cup of tea in those hands. Not a real cup, just a imagination. Feel the warmth seeping into your palms, slow and soft. Smell the turthy, a little sweet. Now, take a slow breath in, and as you exhale, imagine taking a small sip. Notice the taste, mild, warm, filling your mouth. For just this second, don't think about anything else. Just feel the cup, the warmth, the taste. That's it. That's the present moment. That's the peace Master Jiao was talking about. You might notice that when you do this, when you focus on one simple thing, your mind slows down. The thoughts that were racing around start to fade, like clouds moving away from the sun. You don't have to push them away. You just have to give your mind something else to focus on. Something small, something real, something here. That's the magic of Hafti. It's not about the tea. It's about the act of being present with the tea. It's about using something ordinary to find something extraordinary peace. Right here, right now. Let me tell you another little part of Master Jiao's story. One day, a young monk came to him, looking very upset. The monk had been practicing meditation for months, but he said he wasn't getting it. He said his mind was always wandering. He'd sit down to meditate, and he'd think about food, or his family, or the weather. He felt like he was failing, like he'd never find enlightenment. He begged Master Jiao to tell him what he was doing wrong. Master Jiao didn't scold him. He didn't tell him to meditate harder. He just got up, walked to the kitchen, and came back with a teapot and 2 cups. He poured the tea, handed a cup to the young monk, and said, "Have tea." The young monk was confused. "But Master," he said, "I'm asking about meditation. I'm asking about enlightenment." Master Jiao smiled and said, "Or do you drink your tea?" The young monk thought about that. He realized that when he was drinking tea, he was usually thinking about something else of his meditation practice, about his failures, about what he needed to do next. He wasn't actually drinking the tea. He was somewhere else. And that's exactly the problem with his meditation, too. When he sat down to meditate, he wasn't actually meditating. He was thinking about whether he was meditating right. He was judging himself, worrying, planning. He wasn't present. So Master Jiao's advice was simple. Stop trying so hard. Stop thinking about getting it or failing. Just drink the tea. Just sit. Just be here. Because enlightenment peace isn't something you achieve. It's something you notice when you stop looking for it. It's something that's already there in the ordinary moments. If you're willing to see it, this is such an important lesson for relaxation. So many of us try so hard to relax. We buy fancy candles. We listen to meditation apps. We take bubble baths, but we're still thinking about work, or the kids, or the future. We're trying to relax, but we're not actually present in the relaxing. We're like the young monk. We're so focused on whether we're doing it right that we can't actually feel it. Have tea. Not try to relax. Not do this to be calm. Just have tea. Just be here. With the candle, with the bath, with the quiet. Just notice. Just feel. That's all you need to do. Let's try that again. Bring your attention back to your breath. Not a deep breath, just a normal one. In, out. Notice the air moving in through your nose, cool and soft. Notice it moving out through your mouth, a little warmer. For just this breath, don't think about anything else. Just feel the breath. That's it. That's relaxation. Not a big, dramatic moment. Just a small, quiet one. But it's real. It's here. And it's yours. Whenever you want it. You might be wondering why this story has lasted so long. Why people still talk about Master Jiao and his tea 1,000 years later. It's because the problem he was solving is still our problem. We're still stuck in the past and the future. We're still trying too hard to be perfect, to do more, to be more. And we're still forgetting to be present with the ordinary things, the tea, the breath, the quiet. But the solution is still the same too. Have tea, be here, notice, relax. Let's imagine one more thing. Picture yourself sitting in that courtyard with Master Zhao. The sun is setting, painting the sky, soft orange and pink. The stream is still trickling. The birds are quieting down. You're holding your teacup warm in your hands. Master Zhao is sitting beside you, quiet. You don't have any questions anymore. You don't have any worries. You're just there, with the tea, with the sunset, with the quiet. That's how it feels to be present. That's how it feels to relax. You can take that feeling with you wherever you go. When you're stuck in traffic, you can say to yourself, have tea, and bring your attention to the air conditioning, or the sound of the radio, or your breath. When you're stressed at work, you can say, have tea, and bring your attention to the keyboard under your fingers, or the cup of coffee on your desk, or the sound of your colleague's voice. When you're lying in bed at night, unable to sleep, you can say, have tea, and bring your attention to the feel of the sheets, the sound of your breath, the quiet of the room. It's not about the tea. It's about the choice to be present. It's about the choice to relax, right here, right now, no matter what's happening around you. It's about the choice to stop being somewhere else and start being here. Master Zhao knew that peace isn't something you find in a temple or a book or a teacher. It's something you find in yourself, in the ordinary moments when you stop looking for it. It's something you find when you pick up a cup of tea, take a sip, and say, this is enough. Right here, right now, this is enough. As we close this part of our journey, I want you to hold on to that feeling, the feeling of the warm teacup, the feeling of being present, the feeling of enough. You don't have to remember every word of this story. You just have to remember that peace is here with you, always. You just have to choose to notice it. Take one more slow breath in and out. Feel your body relaxing a little more, your mind softening. You're doing great. You're here. You're present. You're at peace. Let that feeling of the warm teacup linger a little longer. Let it stay with you like a soft blanket as we move forward. Notice how your breath has settled now, slow and steady, like a river that's found its gentle pace. There's no need to rush into this next story. We can let it unfold, soft and slow, just like the light of the moon creeping across a quiet room. Our story today takes us to another small monastery, this one nestled at the foot of a mountain where the trees grow tall and thick, their branches weaving together like old friends holding hands. The air here smells of damp earth and pine needles, especially after rain, and the sound of bells from the monastery's tower echoes through the valleys at dawn and dusk. This is where Master Nongquan Puyuan lived, a monk who didn't wear fancy robes, didn't give grand sermons, and didn't fill his days with complicated rituals. Instead, he spent his time planting vegetables in the monastery garden, mending old robes, and sitting with his disciples under the big maple tree in the courtyard, talking about something he called the ordinary mind. One morning, as the sun was just peeking over the mountaintops, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, a young disciple came to find Master Nongquan. The disciple was in a hurry, his robes askew, his hair messy, like he'd run all the way from his room. He'd been studying Zen for years, traveling from monastery to monastery, looking for the way, the path to enlightenment, to perfect peace. But no matter how hard he tried, he felt like he was missing something. He'd memorized all the sacred texts, practiced meditation for hours every day, and followed every rule to the letter. But still, his mind was restless. He still worried about being good enough, still felt like he was chasing something just out of reach. "Master," he said, bowing deeply, his voice tight with frustration, "I've been searching for the way for so long. I've read every book, meditated until my legs ache, and tried to be as pure and wise as the great monks of old. But I still don't have it. What am I doing wrong? How do I find the path to enlightenment?" Master Nan Quan was sitting on a stone bench in the garden, holding a small trowel, just about to plant a row of turnips. He looked up at the young disciple, his eyes soft, not a hint of judgment in them. He set down the trowel, brushed the dirt off his hands, and said, "The ordinary mind is the way." The disciple frowned. He'd expected something grand, something about suffering and liberation, about breaking free from the cycle of desire, about years of strict practice, not the ordinary mind. "Master," he said, confused, "what do you mean? The ordinary mind is just ordinary. It's full of thoughts about food and sleep, about worries and mistakes, about all the small, silly things that fill our days. How can that be the way to enlightenment?" Master Nan Quan smiled. He pointed to the turnip seeds in his hands, small, brown, unremarkable, just like any other seed. "What do you see when you look at these seeds?" he asked. The disciple looked at them. "Just seeds," he said. "Small, plain, nothing special." "Yet," Master Nan Quan said, "if I plant them in the earth, water them, and let the sun shine on them, they will grow into turnips. They will feed us when we are hungry. They will give life, even though they start as something ordinary. The ordinary seed becomes something precious, not because it changes into something grand, but because we let it be what it is and tend to it with care." He paused, then looked back at the disciple. "Your mind is like that seed. You think you need to make it extraordinary to find peace, to get rid of the ordinary thoughts, to be something you're not. But that's the mistake. The ordinary mind, with its thoughts of food and sleep, its worries and its small joys, is already the way. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to change it. You just need to let it be, and tend to it with kindness." The disciple stood there, staring at the seeds in Master Nan Quan's hand. He thought about all the years he'd spent trying to improve his mind, trying to push away the silly thoughts, trying to be someone more spiritual, someone who didn't get upset or worried or tired. He thought about how, every time he had a thought about something as simple as wanting a bowl of rice for dinner, he'd scold himself for being too attached to desires. Every time he felt tired and wanted to rest instead of meditating, he'd call himself lazy. Every time he made a mistake, he'd feel like a failure. He'd been fighting his ordinary mind for so long, he'd forgotten how to just be with it. "Master," he said, his voice softer now, "so you're saying I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to have a mind that's always calm, always wise, always enlightened." Master Nan Quan picked up the trowel again and bent down to dig a small hole in the dirt. He dropped a seed in, then covered it with earth. "When you water these seeds," he said, "do you scold them for not growing fast enough? Do you get angry when they need rain instead of sun? Do you call them imperfect because they take time to become turnips? The disciple shook his head. No, Master. You can't scold a seed. It just grows in its own time, in its own way. Your mind is the same, Master Nanquan said. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be allowed to be. When you have a thought about food, don't scold yourself. Just notice it, like you'd notice a bird flying by. When you feel tired, don't call yourself lazy, just rest, like you'd let a flower close its petals at night. When you make a mistake, don't feel like a failure. Just learn from it, like you'd learn to plant a seed a little deeper next time. That's the ordinary mind. That's the way. Let's take a moment to let that sink in. How often do we do the same thing as that young disciple? How often do we look at our ordinary lives, our messy kitchens, our tired eyes, our thoughts that jump from one small thing to another, and think, this isn't enough. I need to be more, do more, have more to find peace. We think relaxation is something that comes only when our lives are perfect, when the house is clean, the to-do list is empty, the kids are quiet, the job is stress-free. But that's a lie. Perfect doesn't exist. And waiting for perfect to relax means we'll never relax at all, Master. Nanquan's lesson is simple. Relaxation lives in the ordinary. It's in the way you fold your laundry slowly, not rushing to finish so you can move to the next task. It's in the way you sip your morning coffee and taste it, instead of gulping it down while checking your phone. It's in the way you sit down at the end of the day, even if the dishes are still in the sink, and just breathe for a minute. It's in letting yourself be human, perfect, tired, messy, and still finding peace in that. Let me tell you another little story about Master Nang. One winter, the monastery ran out of firewood. The monks were cold, their hands chapped from the frost, and they worried about how they'd keep warm until spring. The younger monks wanted to go into the nearby village to ask for help, to beg for firewood or money. But Master Nanquan shook his head. We don't need to beg, he said. We have everything we need right here. He took them to the woods behind the monastery, woods they'd walked through 100 times before. But this time, he pointed to the dead branches on the ground, the ones they'd always stepped over, thinking they were too small or too ordinary to be useful. These will burn, he said. They're not big, they're not fancy, but they'll keep us warm. The monks gathered the dead branches, armfuls of them, small and gnarled and ordinary. They built a fire in the main hall, and sure enough, the branches burned bright and warm. They sat around it, drinking hot tea, talking softly, and for the first time in weeks, they didn't feel worried. They felt calm, they felt grateful, because Master Nanquan had shown them that the thing they needed, warmth, peace, was right there in front of them, in something ordinary they'd overlooked. That's what so many of us do, too. We overlook the ordinary things that can bring us relaxation because we're too busy looking for something grand. We think we need a fancy vacation to relax, but we don't. We just need to sit on our porch for 5 minutes and watch the sunset. We think we need a perfect night's sleep to feel rested, but we don't. We just need to close our eyes for a minute and breathe, even if the house is noisy. We think we need to fix our lives to be happy, but we don't. We just need to notice the small, ordinary good things that are already there. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Master Nanquan meant by the ordinary mind. I want you to bring your attention to the sensation of your clothes against your skin. not the whole outfit. Maybe the sleeve of your shirt against your arm, or the fabric of your pants against your leg. Notice how it feels. Is it soft, a little rough, cool, warm? Don't judge it. Don't think about whether you like the fabric or not. Just notice it. That's an ordinary sensation, something you probably never pay attention to. But right now, if you let yourself feel it fully, you'll notice something. Your mind slows down. The thoughts that were floating around start to fade because you're not chasing them anymore. You're just here with this ordinary feeling, and that's relaxation. You don't need to do anything special. You don't need to be anyone special. You just need to be here with the ordinary things, the fabric of your clothes, the sound of your breath, the warmth of the air around you. That's the way, that's peace. The young disciple stayed with Master Nangquan for many years after that. He stopped memorizing texts and started helping in the garden. He stopped scolding himself for imperfect meditation and started sitting quietly, just noticing his breath. He stopped chasing enlightenment and started living his life, ordinary, messy, beautiful. And one day, as he was planting turnips, just like Master Nangquan had done that first morning, he looked down at his hands in the dirt, felt the sun on his back, and smiled. He didn't have a grand moment of enlightenment. He didn't hear a voice or see a light. He just felt calm. He felt like he was exactly where he needed to be, doing exactly what he needed to do. He realized that the way he'd been searching for was right there, in the ordinary act of planting turnips. That's the gift of the ordinary mind. It doesn't give you something big and dramatic. It gives you something real, something that stays with you, even when life is hard. It gives you the ability to relax, not because everything is perfect, but because you know that even the imperfect, ordinary moments are enough. Think about your own life right now. What ordinary things are you overlooking that could bring you peace? Is it the sound of your child laughing in the next room? Is it the taste of a glass of water, cold and fresh? Is it the feel of your feet on the floor, solid and steady? These things don't seem special, but they are. They're the building blocks of relaxation. They're the way. As we sit with this story, let's take another slow breath. In, out. Notice how your body feels now, maybe a little heavier, a little softer, a little more at ease. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do more. You just have to be here with your ordinary mind and let yourself relax. That's all Master Nangquan wanted for his disciple. That's all any of us need. The sun is starting to rise a little higher over the mountain now. In our story, the disciple is still planting turnips, his hands in the dirt, his mind quiet. Master Nangquan is sitting on the stone bench, watching him, smiling. There's no hurry, no worry, no need for anything more, just the ordinary, beautiful moment. And that's enough. You are enough, just as you are. Your ordinary mind is enough. Your ordinary life is enough. And in that enoughness, you will find relaxation. You will find peace. Let the quiet of that mountain garden stay with you a little while longer. The feel of dirt under hands, the warmth of the sun on shoulders, the softness of an ordinary moment that holds more peace than any grand plan. Now, let's let our thoughts drift like a leaf on a slow stream to another time, another place, a monastery in the north of China, where winter winds blow sharp and cold, and the snow piles high against the wooden doors. This is where Daxia Shansi, or Master Dangxia, as he's sometimes called, lived for a time. A monk with a wild beard, a twinkle in his eye, and a habit of breaking rules that didn't serve the heart of Zen. It was a bitter winter that year, the kind of winter where the air stings your cheeks when you step outside, where the river freezes solid, and even the thickest robes can't keep out the chill. The monastery's stores of firewood had run low weeks before. The monks huddled together in the main hall, their hands tucked under their robes, their breath coming out in small white clouds. They'd tried to keep warm by meditating, by telling stories, by wrapping themselves in extra blankets, but nothing worked. The cold seeped into their bones, making it hard to think, hard to rest, hard to find any peace at all. One afternoon, as the sun hung low in the sky, pale and weak, Master Dangsha walked into the main hall. He was wearing the same thin robe he always wore, but he didn't look cold. He looked around at the other monks huddled, shivering, their faces tight with discomfort, and smiled. "What's troubling you?" he asked, his voice warm like a fire on a cold night. A senior monk, his nose red from the cold, looked up at him. "Master, we're freezing," he said. "We have no more firewood. How can we meditate? How can we find peace when we can barely feel our fingers?" Master Dangsha nodded, like he understood. He looked around the hall, his eyes stopping on the two small wooden Buddha statues that sat on a shelf in the corner. They were beautiful statues carved by a skilled craftsman, their faces calm and serene, their robes detailed with small patterns. The monks had always treated them with great respect, dusting them every day, placing flowers in front of them, bowing to them when they walked by. They were symbols of the Buddha's wisdom, of the path to enlightenment, symbols they'd never dreamed of touching, let alone using for anything practical. Master Dangsha walked over to the shelf. He picked up one of the Buddha statues, turning it in his hands. The wood was smooth, polished by years of being touched and admired. "Master, what are you doing?" the senior monk asked, his voice sharp with shock. "Put that down, that's a sacred statue." Master Dangsha looked at him, his eyes soft. "Sacred," he said. "If it's sacred, it should help us, shouldn't it? Right now, we need warmth more than we need a statue to bow to. This wood will burn. It will keep us warm. Isn't that a better use of it?" Before anyone could stop him, Master Dangsha carried the statue to the empty fireplace in the center of the hall. He set it down, then picked up a small axe that leaned against the wall. He swung it gently, splitting the statue into small pieces. The monks gasped. Some of them looked away, like they couldn't bear to watch. One young monk started to cry, saying that Master Dangsha was committing a terrible sin, that he'd angered the Buddha, that the monastery would be cursed. But Master Dangsha didn't stop. He split the second statue too, then stacked the pieces of wood in the fireplace. He lit a match, small, bright, warm, and touched it to the dry wood. The fire caught quickly, crackling softly as it grew. Orange and yellow flames danced up, casting a warm glow over the hall. The cold started to melt away, replaced by a gentle heat that seeped into the monks' bones. They stopped shivering, they stopped gasping. They sat there, staring at the fire, at the pieces of the Buddha statues burning, and for a minute, no one said anything. Finally, the senior monk spoke, his voice still tight, but not with anger anymore, with confusion. "Master," he said, "the Buddha taught us to respect sacred things. He taught us to follow the rules, to honor the symbols of our faith. You burned the Buddha statues. How can that be right? How can that be part of the path to peace? Master Dangsha sat down by the fire, holding his hands out to warm them. He looked at the senior monk, and then at all the other monks, his eyes calm and clear. "Tell me," he said, "what is the Buddha?" The senior monk answered quickly, like he'd memorized the words. "The Buddha is the one who attained enlightenment. He is the teacher of the way. He is the symbol of wisdom and compassion." Master Dangsha shook his head. "No," he said, "the Buddha is not a statue. He is not a symbol. He is not a set of rules to follow or a list of things to respect. The Buddha is the peace in your heart. The Buddha is the wisdom that comes from being present. The Buddha is the ability to see what you need right now and to do what's kind for yourself and for others." That statue was just wood. It didn't have any wisdom. It didn't have any compassion. It couldn't help us when we were cold, but when we burned it, it gave us warmth. It helped us feel calm. It helped us find peace. Isn't that more like the Buddha's teachings than a statue we bow to but don't understand? Let's take a moment to let that sink in. How often do we hold onto symbols in our own lives, things we think are sacred or important because we've always been told they are, even when they don't serve us? Maybe it's a routine we follow every day, even though it makes us stressed, like waking up at 5 a.m. to meditate, even though we're exhausted, because we think spiritual people meditate at 5 a.m. Maybe it's a belief we have about ourselves, like, I have to be strong all the time, or I can't ask for help because we think that's what good people do. Maybe it's a thing we own: a fancy journal, an expensive yoga mat, a beautiful candle that we think will make us more relaxed, even though we never use it because it's too nice to touch. These are our own Buddha statues, things we treat as sacred, things we're afraid to let go of, things we think are necessary for peace. But just like Master Dangsha's statues, they're often just things. They're not peace itself. They're not wisdom itself. They're just forms, outer shells that we've filled with meaning. Even when that meaning doesn't help us, Master Dangsha burned the statues because he knew that peace isn't in the form, it's in the heart. It's not in bowing to a wooden statue, it's in being kind to the people around you. It's not in following rules, it's in doing what's right for the moment. It's not in holding on to things because they're sacred. It's in letting go of things that don't serve you, so you can make space for what does. Let me tell you another little part of Master Dangsha's story. A few days after he burned the statues, a traveler came to the monastery. The traveler was a devout Buddhist, and when he heard what Master Dangsha had done, he was furious. He marched into the hall where Master Dangsha was sitting by the fire, drinking tea, and yelled at him. "How dare you burn the Buddha statues?" he said. "You're a disgrace to the Buddhist faith. You should be ashamed of yourself." Master Dangsha didn't get angry. He just smiled and poured the traveler a cup of tea. "Sit down," he said. "Warm yourself. Tell me, when you pray to the Buddha, what do you pray for?" The traveler hesitated, but he sat down. He took the cup of tea, holding it in his hands to warm them. "I pray for peace," he said, "for wisdom, for compassion, for the strength to follow the path." Master Dangsha nodded. "And have you found that peace?" he asked. The traveler shook his head. "No," he said. "I pray every day. I go to temple every week. I follow all the rules. But I'm still angry. I'm still worried. I still don't feel at peace." Master Dangsha looked at him. "Do you think the Buddha wants you to be angry, to be worried, to follow rules that make you unhappy?" He pointed to the fire, where the last embers of the statues were still glowing. That fire kept us warm. It helped us stop shivering. It helped us feel calm. Isn't that the peace you're praying for? Isn't that the compassion the Buddha taught, helping others when they're in need? I didn't burn the Buddha. I burned a statue. The Buddha is still here in this tea, in this fire, in the way we're sitting together right now. The Buddha is in your heart if you stop looking for him in a wooden statue. The traveler sat there, staring at his teacup. He thought about all the years he'd spent praying to statues, following rules, trying to be a good Buddhist, and how unhappy he'd been. He thought about the warmth of the fire, the taste of the tea, the quiet of the hall. And for the first time in a long time, he felt calm. He didn't feel angry anymore. He didn't feel worried. He just felt present. That's the lesson Master Dangsha was teaching then and now. Peace isn't in the forms we hold on to. It's in the moments we live. It's in the choices we make to be kind, to be practical, to let go of what doesn't serve us. It's in understanding that the sacred isn't something outside of us, it's something inside of us. Something we can find in the warmth of a fire, the taste of a cup of tea, the quiet of a cold winter afternoon. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Master Dangsha meant. I want you to think of one thing in your life that you treat as sacred, something you think you should do or have or be, even if it doesn't make you happy. Maybe it's a habit, a belief, a thing, something you're afraid to let go of because you think it's part of who you are or part of the path to peace. Now, I want you to ask yourself, does this thing help me feel calm? Does it help me be kind to myself or others? Does it help me be present right now? Or is it just a form of statue I'm bowing to, even though it doesn't serve me? You don't have to do anything about it right now. You don't have to burn it like Master Dangsha burned the Buddha statues. You just have to notice it. Because noticing is the first step to letting go, to finding peace, not in the form, but in the heart. The monks in that monastery learned that lesson too. After that winter, they stopped focusing so much on the rules and the symbols. They started focusing on each other, on keeping each other warm, on sharing their food, on sitting together by the fire and talking about their fears and their joys. They still believed in the Buddha's teachings, but they didn't need statues to remind them. They found the Buddha in the small, kind things they did for each other. They found peace in the warmth of the fire, in the taste of hot tea. In the quiet of a winter afternoon, Master Dangsha left the monastery a few months later, moving on to another place, another group of people who needed to learn to let go of their forms. But the monks never forgot him. They never forgot the winter he burned the Buddha statues. They never forgot that peace isn't in what you hold onto, it's in what you're willing to let go of, to make space for what's real. As we sit with this story, let's take a slow breath. In, out. Feel the warmth of the air around you, even if it's not from a fire. Feel the softness of the surface beneath you. Feel the quiet of this moment. This is real. This is peace. You don't need any symbols, any rules, any sacred things to find it. It's right here in your heart, in this moment. The fire in that monastery's hall burned for a long time, keeping the monks warm through the rest of the winter. When spring came, and the snow melted, and the trees started to bud, the monks built a new fireplace. They didn't replace the Buddha statues. Instead, they hung a small sign above the fireplace with 4 words written on it. The Buddha is here. And he was. He was in the warmth of the sun, in the sound of the river thawing, in the laughter of the monks as they planted seeds in the garden. He was in the ordinary moments, the ones they'd once overlooked. He was in their hearts, where he'd always been. You don't need to burn any statues to find peace. You just need to look inside. You just need to let go of the forms that don't serve you. You just need to be here, right now, in this moment. Because that's where the Buddha is. That's where peace is. Let the warmth of that monastery fire linger in your bones a little longer, the crackle of wood, the glow of embers, the quiet realization that peace lives not in what we hold sacred, but in what we're willing to see clearly. Now, let's let our minds drift like smoke from that fire, soft and slow, to a bustling monastery in the Hebei region of China. This place is different from the quiet mountain retreats we visited before. It's filled with the hum of disciples, young monks carrying water, old monks poring over scrolls, the clink of bowls at mealtimes. At the center of it all is Master Linji Yixuan, or Linji, as he's often called, a monk with a straight back, a sharp gaze, and a habit of using one simple, powerful tool to wake people up: his voice. A shout, not a shout of anger or frustration or command. Like a knife through fog, Linji's monastery was a place of practice, but not the kind of practice that involved sitting silently for hours or memorizing ancient texts. Linji believed that enlightenment wasn't something you could think your way into, that the mind, when it's busy overanalyzing, overcomplicating, overthinking, misses the truth that's right in front of it. So he used his shout to jolt his disciples out of that thinking mode, to stop their minds from racing, to make them pause and to see what was already there. Beneath the noise, one morning, as the monastery woke to the sound of roosters crowing and monks sweeping the courtyard, a young disciple named Weijing approached Linji. Weijing had been with Linji for 3 months, and in that time he'd grown more and more frustrated. He'd come to the monastery hoping to learn the way, but all Linji seemed to do was shout. When disciples asked questions about enlightenment, Linji shouted. When they talked about their meditation struggles, Linji shouted. When they tried to explain their insights, Linji shouted. Weijing didn't understand. He thought Linji was being rude or lazy, or maybe even a fraud. He wanted answers, clear, logical, step-by-step answers. Not shouts, Master Weijing said, bowing deeply. But his voice was tight with irritation. I've been here 3 months. Every time I ask you about the path, you shout at me. I want to learn. I want to understand. Why won't you teach me? Linji was sitting on a low stool in his room, mending a tear in his robe with a thin needle and thread. He didn't look up. He just kept sewing, his fingers steady, his breath slow. Weijing waited. He expected Linji to shout again, to brush him off, to avoid the question. But Linji kept sewing. The room was quiet, except for the soft sound of the needle piercing the fabric, and the distant noise of the monastery outside. Weijing's frustration grew. He was about to speak again about how unfair this was, about how he'd traveled so far to learn from Linji. When Linji looked up, Linji's eyes were calm, not sharp. He set down the robe and the needle. He looked at Wai Jing, really looked at him, mapped the furrow in his brow, at the tightness in his jaw, at the way he was clutching his hands into fists. "Tell me, Wai Jing," Linji said, his voice soft, not loud. "When you hear my shout, what do you feel?" Wai Jing was taken aback. He hadn't expected that question. He thought for a moment. "I feel annoyed," he said. "I feel like you're not listening to me, like you don't care about my questions." Linji nodded. "And what happens to your mind when you feel annoyed?" Wai Jing thought again. "It races," he said. "I think about how unfair it is. I think about all the things I want to say to you. I think about whether I should leave, find another master who will teach me properly." Linji smiled. "Exactly," he said. "Your mind is so busy thinking about annoyance, about fairness, about leaving that you can't see what's right in front of you. You're looking for the path in your thoughts, but the path isn't in your thoughts. It's in the pause, the space between the thoughts. My shout doesn't give you answers. It gives you that pause. It stops the mind from racing long enough for you to see the truth." Wai Jing frowned. "The truth," he said. "What truth? If your shout is supposed to help me see it, why do I only see annoyance?" Linji stood up. He walked to the window, which looked out at the courtyard. A group of young monks were playing a game with a small ball, laughing as they chased each other. The sun was shining, casting bright light on the stone walls. A bird flew past the window, its wings beating quickly, then disappeared into the trees. "Look out there," Linji said, pointing. "What do you see?" Wai Jing walked to the window. He looked out. "Monks playing," he said. "The sun. A bird." "Do you need to think about those things to see them?" Linji asked. Wai Jing shook his head. "No," he said. "I just see them, without thinking." "Exactly," Linji said again. "Enlightenment is like that. It's not something you think about. It's something you see when your mind stops thinking, when you stop trying to understand it, or figure it out, or earn it. My shout is just a way to stop the thinking, to make you pause, to let you see what's already there before your mind starts talking about it." Wai Jing was silent. He looked back out the window. The monks were still playing. The sun was still shining. The bird was gone, but another one had landed on the edge of the roof, tilting its head to look at the courtyard. For a second, just a second, Wai Jing didn't think about his frustration. He didn't think about the path, or answers, or Linji's shouts. He just saw the monks, the sun, the bird, the quiet of the moment. And in that second, he felt something he hadn't felt since he'd come to the monastery.com. Not the kind of calm that comes from solving a problem or getting an answer. The kind of calm that comes from just being no thinking, no worrying, no wanting. Then his mind started again. "Is this it?" he thought. "Is this enlightenment? It's too simple. It can't be." And just as that thought crossed his mind, Boom Linji shouted. It wasn't a loud shout, but it was sharp. It cut through Wai Jing's thought, like a stone thrown into a still pond. Wai Jing jumped. He turned to Linji, his heart beating fast. "Why did you shout?" he asked. But this time, his voice wasn't angry. It was confused, but curious. "Because you started thinking again," Linji said. "You saw the truth for a second, but then your mind took over. It started asking questions, judging, doubting. My shout stopped that. It brought you back to the moment, to the seeing, not the thinking." Wai Jing stood there, staring at Linji. He thought about the second of calm he'd felt, about how simple it was, how natural. He thought about how hard he'd been trying to find enlightenment, when it was just there, in the act of seeing, of being present. He thought about all the hours he'd spent worrying about his meditation, about his progress, about whether he was good enough, and how all that worrying had kept him from the very thing he was looking for. "I think I understand," Weijing said, his voice soft. "Good," he said. "Now, don't think about understanding, just be." Let's take a moment to let that sink in. How often are we like Weijing? How often is our minds so busy thinking about the past, the future, our worries, our wants, our to-do lists that we miss the present moment? We're so busy thinking about our lives that we don't live them. We're so busy looking for relaxation that we don't feel it, because our minds are racing too fast to notice the calm that's already there. Beneath the noise, Linji's shout was a tool, but it's not the only tool. We don't need to shout at ourselves to stop thinking. We just need to notice when our minds are racing, and to pause, to take a breath, to let the noise fade, if only for a second. Because in that pause, in that space between the thoughts is where relaxation lives. It's where peace lives. Let me tell you another story about Linji and his shout. One day, a scholar came to the monastery. The scholar was a man of books. He'd read every Buddhist text he could find. He could quote the Buddha's teachings from memory. He could debate the finer points of Zen philosophy for hours. He'd heard about Linji's shout and had come to prove that it was a silly, meaningless trick. He wanted to show Linji that true wisdom came from thinking, from understanding, from knowledge, not from shouting. The scholar approached Linji in the courtyard. He bowed, but his posture was stiff, his expression proud. "Master Linji," he said, "I've come to discuss the nature of enlightenment. I've studied the scriptures for many years, and I believe I have a deep understanding of the path. I've heard you use a shout to teach your disciples, but I fail to see how noise can lead to wisdom. Could you explain your method to me?" Linji looked at the scholar. He saw the pride in his eyes, the way he held his head high, the way he was already preparing to argue, to defend his understanding. Linji didn't say anything. He just looked at him. The scholar waited. He expected Linji to explain, to justify his shout. But Linji said nothing. The scholar grew uncomfortable. He started to speak again, to ask another question, to make a point about his studies. But before he could get the first word out, Linji shouted. The scholar froze. His mouth hung open. His mind went blank. For a second, just a second, he wasn't thinking about his books, or his knowledge, or his pride. He was just there, present. He felt the sun on his face. He heard the wind in the trees. He smelled the incense from the main hall. And in that second, he felt a calm he'd never felt before, a calm that didn't come from knowing answers, but from not needing them. When he finally found his voice, the scholar's tone was no longer proud. It was humble, even a little shaky. "Master," he said, "I've read 1,000 books, but I've never felt what I just felt. That silence, that presence. I thought wisdom was in the thinking, but it's in the not thinking. I thought enlightenment was in the answers, but it's in the pause." Linji nodded. "You don't need to read more books," he said. "You need to stop reading long enough to see what's in front of you. You don't need to think more. You need to stop thinking long enough to feel what's already there." That's the lesson Linji was teaching then. And now, Our minds are powerful tools, but sometimes they're too powerful. They take over. They make us think that relaxation is something we need to achieve through hard work, or deep thinking, or perfect meditation, but it's not. Relaxation is something we need to allow by stopping the mind from racing, by pausing, by being present. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Linji meant by that pause. I want you to take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now, as you breathe, I want you to notice your thoughts, not judge them, not try to change them, just notice them. Are they racing? Are they jumping from one thing to another? Are they about the past or the future or something you need to do? Now, I want you to take another deep breath, and as you exhale, I want you to imagine a soft shout, not a loud one, but a gentle one, like a whisper in your mind that says, pause. Just that, pause. When you say that word to yourself, pause, notice what happens. Does your mind slow down even a little? Do the thoughts fade, even for a second? Do you feel a little more present, a little more here? That's Linji's shout in your own mind. It's not about noise. It's about creating a space, a pause, where you can step out of the thinking and into the feeling, where you can step out of the noise and into the calm. Weijing stayed with Linji for many years after that. He stopped asking for answers. He stopped trying to figure out the path. Instead, he learned to notice when his mind was racing in, to pause. Sometimes he'd use Linji's shout in his own mind. Sometimes he'd just take a breath. Sometimes he'd just look at the sun, or the trees, or the monks playing in the courtyard. And slowly, he found the peace he'd been looking for, not in the thinking, but in the not thinking. Not in the answers, but in the pause. The monastery where Linji lived is gone now, but his teachings live on. They live on in the idea that sometimes the best way to relax is to stop trying to relax. That sometimes the best way to find peace is to stop looking for it. That the truth is right in front of us if we can just pause long enough to see it. As we sit with this story, let's take one more slow breath. In, out. Notice the pause between the inhale and the exhale. That small space, that's where peace lives. It's not in the breath itself, it's in the space around it. It's not in the thinking, it's in the space between the thoughts. Linji's shout was just a way to point to that space. But you don't need a shout. You just need to notice it, to let yourself be in it, to let the noise of the mind fade, and to feel the calm that's already there. The sun is starting to set now in our story. The monks are finishing their evening chores. Linji is sitting in his room, still mending his robe. Weijing is sitting beside him, not talking, just being. The room is quiet, the mind is quiet, and that's enough. You don't need to do anything more. You don't need to think anything more. You just need to be here, in this pause, in this calm, in this peace. Let the quiet of that evening in Linji's monastery stay with you, the soft light fading, the stillness of two monks sitting together. No words needed, just presence. Now, let's let our thoughts drift like the last of the day's sunlight, gentle and slow, to a remote valley in southern China. Here, the mountains rise, steep and green, their peaks often wrapped in soft mist, and a narrow path winds through bamboo forests, leading to a small hermitage where Master Dongshan Liangyi lives. Dongshan is a quiet monkey, speaks little, spends much of his time walking alone in the woods or sitting by the stream that runs past the hermitage, and carries a small wooden staff carved with a single line, "Look at your shadow." For years, Dongshan had been troubled by a question that kept him up at night, that made his meditation restless, that followed him like a cloud on a sunny day. The question was simple, but it gnawed at him. Who am I, really? Not the me that wears a robe, that eats rice, that walks in the woods. Not the me that has a name, a past, a set of memories. The real me, the one that exists beyond all the labels, all the stories, all the things we tell ourselves about who we are. He'd read the scriptures, he'd talked to other monks, he'd meditated for hours on end, but no answer came. Instead, the question grew louder, filling his mind with doubt. Am I good enough? Am I on the right path? Will I ever find the truth of who I am? One afternoon, the mist lifted, and the sun came out bright and warm. Dongshan took his wooden staff and walked down to the stream. He'd been feeling particularly restless, that doubt had been weighing on him, making his chest tight, his thoughts racing. He sat down on a smooth stone by the water's edge, staring at the stream as it flowed past, clear fast, carrying small stones and leaves with it. Never stopping, never looking back. He wished his mind could be like that stream, calm, clear, free from doubt. But instead, his mind was like a puddle after rain, muddy, stagnant, filled with questions that wouldn't go away. He sighed, leaning forward, and that's when he saw it, his shadow. It stretched out on the surface of the water, dark and clear, moving when he moved, stopping when he stopped. He watched it for a long time, how it followed him, how it was a part of him, but not him, how it changed shape when the sun moved, how it grew longer or shorter, but never disappeared entirely. He'd seen his shadow 1,000 times before every day since he was a child, but he'd never really looked at it, never thought about what it meant. That day, though, something shifted. He looked at his shadow, and he thought, this shadow is like the me I think I am. It's a reflection, a picture of who I appear to be. But it's not the real me. The real me is the one casting the shadow. The one sitting here, watching the stream, breathing, being. He leaned a little closer, and his shadow moved with him. He waved his hand, and the shadow's hand waved back. He smiled, and the shadow's face smiled too. The shadow isn't separate from me, he thought. It's a part of my experience, but it's not me. Just like my thoughts, my feelings, my memories, they're parts of my experience, but they're not the real me. The real me is the one aware of the thoughts, the one feeling the feelings, the one remembering the memories, the one casting the shadow. For a moment, the doubt melted away. It was like a fog lifting. He didn't have to find who he was. He didn't have to be good enough, or on the right path, or anything other than what he was. He was the one sitting by the stream, the one watching the shadow, the one breathing. That was enough. That was the real me. He closed his eyes, taking a slow breath in. The air smelled of bamboo and damp earth. The stream gurgled softly beside him. A bird sang in the trees above. And for the first time in years, his mind was quiet. Not the quiet of forcing thoughts away, but the quiet of realizing there was no need to chase them. The quiet of knowing he was exactly where he needed to be, exactly who he needed to be. When he opened his eyes again, he looked at his shadow once more. It was still there, stretching on the water, but now it didn't make him feel small or confused. It made him smile, because it was a reminder of the difference between the reflection and the real thing, between the story and the truth. Let's take a moment to let that sink in. How often do we confuse our shadow with our true selves? How often do we let our thoughts, our feelings, our past mistakes, our fears, all the things that are like our shadow, reflections of who we appear to be, define who we really are? We say, I'm a failure because I made a mistake, or I'm not good enough because I don't have what others have, or I'm anxious because that's just who I am. But those things are just our shadow. They're not the real us. The real us is the one aware of the mistake, the one feeling the inadequacy, the one experiencing the anxiety, the one casting the shadow. Dongshin's enlightenment wasn't about finding some grand spiritual truth. It was about realizing something simple. He was already whole. He didn't need to fix himself, or improve himself, or become someone else. He just needed to see the difference between his shadow and his true self. And when he did that, the doubt, the weight of trying to be something he wasn't, disappeared. Let me tell you another little part of Dongshan's story. After that day by the stream, he returned to his hermitage, but he wasn't the same. The restlessness was gone. The doubt was gone. He still meditated, still walked in the woods, still sat by the stream, but now he did it with a sense of ease. A young monk who had heard about Dongshin's wisdom came to visit him a few months later. The young monk was also struggling with doubt about his meditation, doubt about his worth, doubt about whether he'd ever find peace. Master, the young monk said, bowing deeply, I've heard you found the answer to who am I, please. Tell me what it is. I'm so tired of feeling like I'm not enough. I'm so tired of doubting myself. Dongshin didn't answer right away. He picked up his wooden staff, carved with "Look at your shadow," and led the young monk down to the stream. It was late afternoon, and the sun was low, making their shadows long and thin on the water. Look at your shadow, Dongshin said, pointing. The young monk looked. I see it, master, he said. But what does it mean? Is your shadow you? Dongshin asked. The young monk shook his head. No, master. It's just a shadow. It's not real. Is your name you? Dongshin asked. No, the young monk said. My name is just a word people call me. Is your past you? Dongshan asked. The mistakes you've made, the things you've done, are those you? The young monk hesitated. No, he said. My past is just memories. It's not who I am now. Is your doubt you? Dongshan asked. The feeling that you're not enough, is that you? The young monk thought for a long time. He looked at his shadow, then at his hands, then at Dongshan. No, he said quietly. The doubt is just a feeling. I'm the one feeling it. I'm not the doubt itself. Dongshin smiled. Then who are you? He asked. The young monk looked at his shadow again. He looked at the stream, flowing clear and fast. He looked at the sun, setting soft and warm. And then he understood. He wasn't his shadow, or his name, or his past, or his doubt. He was the one watching the shadow, the one hearing the stream, the one feeling the sun on his face. He was the one who was present, right there, right then. And that was enough. Tears came to his eyes, not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. He'd been searching for himself for so long, when he'd been right there all along. You don't need to find yourself, Dongshin said, placing a hand on the young monk's shoulder. You just need to stop looking for yourself in the shadow. You just need to see that you're the one casting it. That's the lesson Dongshen teaches us then. And now, we are not our thoughts, our feelings, our mistakes, our fears. We are not the stories we tell ourselves about who we are or who we should be. We are the awareness behind all of that. We are the one watching the shadow, the one breathing, the one being present. And when we realize that, the doubt, the anxiety, the self-criticism, the feeling that we're not enough starts to fade. Because we see that those things are just our shadow. They're not the real us. The real us is already whole, already enough. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Dongshen meant. I want you to close your eyes, if they're not already closed, and take a slow breath in and out. Now, I want you to notice a thought that's been on your mind lately, a worry, a doubt, a memory. It could be something small, like I forgot to do the dishes, or something bigger, like I'm not good at my job. Now, I want you to ask yourself, am I this thought? Not, is this thought true? Or, what does this thought mean? Just, am I this thought? You might notice that the answer is no. You're not the thought. You're the one aware of the thought. You're the one watching it, like you watch your shadow. The thought is just a part of your experience, but it's not you. Now, try that with a feeling, maybe a feeling of tiredness, or calm, or a little bit of anxiety. Ask yourself, am I this feeling? Again, the answer is no. You're the one feeling it. You're not the feeling itself. You are the awareness, the one who is present, the one casting the shadow. And that part of you, the real you, is always calm, always whole, always enough. We spend so much of our lives trying to fix our shadow, trying to change our thoughts, our feelings, our pasts, when we don't need to. We just need to see that the shadow isn't us. We just need to rest in the awareness of who we really are. Dongshen lived the rest of his life in that awareness. He still walked in the woods, still sat by the stream, still talked to monks who came to him for guidance. But he did it all with a sense of peace, a sense of ease, because he knew he was exactly who he needed to be. He knew he was enough. One day, as he was sitting by the stream, watching his shadow, a wind came up, rippling the water. His shadow distorted, stretching and shrinking, breaking into small pieces. A young monk who was sitting with him looked worried. "Master," the monk said, "your shadow is broken. It's not whole anymore." Dongshen smiled, looking at the rippling water. "Is the shadow ever whole?" he asked. "Or is it just a reflection, changing with the light, with the wind, with the water? Or am I the one watching the shadow change, the one sitting here, breathing, being no matter what the shadow looks like?" The young monk nodded, understanding. The shadow could change, could break, could disappear, but the one casting it, the real him, was always whole. That's the truth we often forget. Our shadows, our thoughts, our feelings, our lives will change. They'll be broken sometimes. They'll be messy, or painful, or confusing. But we, the real us, are always whole, always present, always enough. As we sit with this story, let's take one more slow breath, in, out. Notice the awareness behind the breath, the one who is breathing, the one who is present. That's the real you, not the thoughts that might be floating around, not the worries, not the doubts. Just the awareness, just the presence. The sun is setting now in our story. The stream flows on, clear and fast. Dongshen's shadow stretches long on the water, but he doesn't mind. He's not looking for the shadow to be perfect. He's just being just, resting in the truth of who he is. You can rest in that truth too. You don't need to fix your shadow. You don't need to doubt yourself. You just need to see that you're the one casting the shadow. You just need to be present, to breathe, to be, and that's enough. Let the quiet truth of Dongshan's shadow linger with you, the soft realization that you are not your doubts, not your thoughts, but the calm awareness beneath them. Now, let's let our minds drift like the stream's current, slow and steady, to a bustling monastery in the Fujian region of China. This place is filled with the energy of young monks carrying water, chopping wood, practicing calligraphy. But one monk stands out, Su Feng Yakun. Su Feng is earnest, determined, and deeply focused on one goal, achieving enlightenment. He believes that if he works hard enough, meditates long enough, and follows the rules perfectly, he will finally find the peace he's looking for. But what he doesn't realize is that his very effort, his determination to force enlightenment is keeping it just out of reach. Zufeng had traveled to this monastery to study under Master Muzhou Daoming, a wise old monk known for his gentle but direct way of teaching. For months, Zufeng threw himself into his practice. He woke up before dawn to meditate, stayed up late copying sacred texts, and never missed a single chore. He sat in meditation for hours each day, his legs aching, his back stiff, his mind racing with thoughts of, am I doing this right? Will I ever get it? What am I missing? But no matter how hard he tried, he felt no closer to enlightenment. If anything, he felt more frustrated, more tense, more convinced that he was failing. One morning, after sitting in meditation for 3 hours with no sense of calm, his mind jumping from one worry to another, his body throbbing with discomfort, Su Feng stormed out of the meditation hall. He was angry with himself, angry with his practice, angry with the universe for making enlightenment seem so impossible. He wandered into the monastery's courtyard, where he saw a pile of old bricks leaning against the wall. Bricks that had been used to build the monastery years ago, rough and unpolished, covered in dust. And then an idea came to him. He'd heard a story once about a monk who polished a stone for years until it became a jewel. If a stone could become a jewel with enough effort, he thought, then surely a brick could become a mirror with enough polishing. And if he could turn a brick into a mirror, something that reflects the truth, then maybe he could polish his own mind into something clear, something that reflects enlightenment. So Zufeng picked up a brick, found a rough stone in the corner of the courtyard, and began to polish. He rubbed the brick against the stone, back and forth, his arms moving quickly, his jaw tight with determination. Dust flew into the air, his hands grew red and sore, but he didn't stop. He thought, if I keep doing this, if I put in enough effort, this brick will become a mirror. And when it does, I will become enlightened. I just need to work harder. He polished that brick for days. From dawn until dusk, he sat in the courtyard, rubbing the brick against the stone, his mind focused on nothing but the goal. The other monks walked past him, shaking their heads, but Zufeng didn't notice. He was too busy, too determined, too convinced that his effort would pay off. On the third day, Master Muzhou walked into the courtyard. He'd heard about Zhu Feng's brick polishing, and he'd watched him from a distance, his heart soft with understanding. He walked over to Zhu Feng, who was so focused he didn't even look up. "Zhu Feng, Master," Muzhou said, his voice gentle but firm. Zhu Feng paused for a second, then went back to polishing. "Master," he said, not looking up, "I'm busy. I need to turn this brick into a mirror. When I do, I'll be enlightened." Master Muzhou knelt down beside him. He picked up another brick and held it in his hand, turning it over. "Tell me," he said, "have you ever seen a brick turned into a mirror?" Zhu Feng stopped. He looked up at Master Muzhou, his eyes wide with confusion. "Well, no," he said, "but I've heard of stones being turned into jewels. If a stone can become a jewel, why can't a brick become a mirror? I just need to keep polishing. I just need to work harder." Master Muzhou smiled. He set the brick down and looked directly at Zhu Feng. "A stone becomes a jewel because it is a jewel beneath the dirt," he said. "It just needs to be polished to reveal what's already there. But a brick is not a mirror. No matter how much you polish it, no matter how hard you work, it will never reflect light like a mirror. It will always be a brick. You can rub it until your hands bleed, until the brick crumbles to dust, but it will never be a mirror. That's not what it is." Zhu Feng stared at him. He felt a tightness in his chest, like something was breaking open. "But then how do I become enlightened?" he asked, his voice shaking. "I've meditated for hours. I've copied texts. I've done everything right. Why can't I find peace?" Master Muzhou placed a hand on Zhu Feng's shoulder. "Because you're trying to polish a brick into a mirror," he said. "Enlightenment is not something you achieve by working harder. It's not something you get by doing everything right. It's something that's already inside. You're like the jewel in the stone, waiting to be revealed. But you're so busy trying to force it, so busy polishing something that can't be polished, that you can't see what's already there." Zhu Feng set down the brick. His hands were red and sore. His arms ached. But for the first time in months, he didn't feel angry or frustrated. He felt light, like a weight he'd been carrying for years had been lifted. "What do I do then?" he asked. "Stop polishing the brick," Master Muzhou said. "Sit down, breathe, and notice what's already there. The peace you're looking for isn't in the brick, or in your meditation, or in your effort. It's in the pause between your thoughts. It's in the calm beneath your determination. It's in the part of you that's already whole, already enough, just like the jewel in the stone." Zhu Feng sat down on the ground, right there in the courtyard. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't try to meditate. He just breathed, in, out. He noticed the sun on his face, warm and soft. He noticed the sound of the other monks talking in the distance, the wind rustling the leaves of the maple tree above. He noticed the ache in his hands, but he didn't judge it. He just felt it. And as he sat there, breathing, noticing, he felt something he'd never felt before. Calm. Not the calm of forcing his mind to be quiet, but the calm of letting it be. The calm of realizing that he didn't need to work harder, or do more, or be better. He just needed to be. That's the lesson. Zhu Feng learned that day, a lesson that's just as important for us now as it was then. Relaxation is not something we force ourselves to feel. It's not something we earn by checking off all the boxes on our to-do list, or by meditating for a certain amount of time, or by being perfect. It's something that's already inside us, waiting to be noticed. But so often, we're like Zufeng polishing our own bricks, our to-do lists, our meditation goals, our ideas of what relaxation should look like, so hard that we can't see the calm that's already there. Let me tell you another little part of Zufeng's story. After that day, he stopped trying to force enlightenment. He still meditated, but he didn't sit for hours until his legs ached. He meditated for 10 minutes, then got up and stretched. He still copied texts, but he didn't stay up late to finish them. He copied a few lines, then took a walk outside. He still did his chores, but he didn't rush through them. He washed the dishes slowly, noticing the feel of the warm water on his hands. He chopped wood gently, listening to the sound of the axe hitting the log dot, and slowly the calm grew. It wasn't a big, dramatic moment. It was small, like noticing the sun on his face, or the taste of his morning tea, or the sound of the wind. But those small moments added up. They became a feeling of peace that stayed with him even when things were hard. One day, a young monk came to him, looking frustrated. The monk had been trying to meditate for weeks, but his mind was always wandering. He'd heard about Zufeng's brick polishing and wanted to know how he'd finally found peace. "Did you stop meditating?" the young monk asked. Zufeng shook his head. "No," he said. "I stopped trying to meditate perfectly. I stopped trying to force my mind to be quiet. I just sat down, breathed, and let my thoughts come and go like leaves floating down a stream. I stopped polishing the brick and started noticing the jewel." The young monk frowned. "But how do I stop trying? Every time I sit down to meditate, I think about how I'm doing it wrong. I think about how my mind is wandering. I think about how I'll never find peace." Zufeng smiled. He picked up a small stone from the ground and handed it to the young monk. "Hold this," he said. The young monk took the stone. It was smooth, cool in his hand. "Now," Zufeng said, "try to make this stone feel heavy. Really focus on making it heavy." The young monk frowned, but he closed his eyes and focused. He thought about weight, about gravity, about making the stone feel like a boulder. But the stone stayed light. "I can't," he said, opening his eyes. "It's still light now," Zufeng said. "Stop trying to make it heavy. Just hold it. Notice how it feels." The young monk closed his eyes again. He stopped focusing on making the stone heavy. He just felt it cool, smooth, light in his hand. Zufeng said, "You can't force the stone to be heavy. It is what it is. And you can't force your mind to be quiet. It is what it is. But when you stop trying to force it, when you just notice it to find peace, not because the stone is heavy, or because your mind is quiet, but because you stop fighting what is. That's the truth we so often forget. We spend so much time fighting against our minds, against the wandering thoughts, the worries, the imperfect moments that we can't relax. We think, if I can just make my mind be quiet, I'll relax. But that's like trying to make a brick into a mirror. It's not what the mind is for. The mind is meant to think, to wander, to process. Relaxation isn't about stopping the mind, it's about stopping the fight against it. It's about letting the mind be and finding the calm beneath the thoughts. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Zufeng meant. I want you to take a slow breath in and out. Now, I want you to notice your mind. Is it wandering? Are there thoughts floating around about what you need to do tomorrow? About something that happened today? About nothing in particular? Whatever your mind is doing, don't try to stop it. Don't try to make it be quiet. Just notice it, like you'd notice a bird flying by, or a leaf falling from a tree. You don't have to chase the thoughts. You don't have to push them away. You just have to let them be. Now, take another slow breath, in, out. Notice the space between the thoughts, the quiet that's always there, even when the mind is busy. That's the calm Zufeng found. That's the peace that's already inside you. You don't have to polish a brick to find it. You just have to stop trying and start noticing. Zufeng went on to become a great Zen master, teaching hundreds of monks the same lesson he'd learned that day in the courtyard. Enlightenment isn't about effort, it's about awareness. Relaxation isn't about forcing, it's about letting be. Years later, when he was an old man, a monk asked him, "Master, what was the most important thing you ever learned?" Zufeng smiled and said that a brick is just a brick, and peace is just peace. You don't have to change one into the other. You just have to see them for what they are. That's the lesson for us too. Your mind is just your mind. Your thoughts are just your thoughts. You don't have to change them to find relaxation. You just have to see them for what they are, temporary, fleeting, not who you are. And beneath them, you'll find the calm that's always been there, the peace that's already inside you. As we sit with this story, let's take one more slow breath, in, out. Notice the feel of the air in your lungs, the beat of your heart, the quiet of this moment. You don't have to do anything more. You don't have to be anything more. You just have to be here, to breathe, to let be. The sun is high in the sky now. In our story, Zufeng is sitting in the courtyard, holding a brick in his hand, not polishing it, just holding it. He's watching the other monks work, listening to the wind, smiling. The brick is still a brick, but Zufeng is at peace. You can be at peace too. You don't need to polish anything. You just need to notice the peace that's already there, and that's enough. Let the weight of Zufeng's brick fade from your hands, the ache of forced effort, the tension of chasing a goal that wasn't meant to be chased. Now, let's let our minds drift like the softest of clouds, slow and unhurried, to a monastery perched on the slopes of Yashan Mountain in Hunan, China. Here, the air is thin and fresh, scented with pine and wildflowers, and the sky stretches wide above a thin blue, sometimes streaked with white clouds that drift by like pieces of cotton. No hurry, no plan. This is where Master Yaoshan Weiyan lived, a monk known for his quiet presence and his love of sitting on the monastery's eastern porch, watching the clouds. Yaoshan was not a monk who gave long sermons or asked his disciples to perform strict rituals. Instead, he taught through silence, through presence, through the simple act of noticing. His favorite place to sit was a wooden bench on the eastern porch, old, worn, its surface smooth from years of his hands resting on it. Every afternoon, when the sun was warm but not harsh, he would sit there, a cup of tea beside him, and watch the clouds. He didn't do anything else, didn't read, didn't meditate in the formal way, didn't talk. He just watched. The disciples would often wonder about this. They'd see him sitting there, his eyes soft, his face calm, and they'd whisper to each other, "What is Master doing?" they'd ask. Why does he watch the clouds so much? Isn't he supposed to be teaching us? Isn't he supposed to be helping us find enlightenment? One afternoon, a young disciple named Lingwan mustered up the courage to ask. Lingwan had been with Yaoshan for 6 months, and he was growing impatient. He wanted answers, guidance, a clear path to follow. But Yaoshan just sat and watched the clouds. Lingwan approached the porch, his sandals scuffing the stone steps, and bowed. "Master," he said, his voice a little too loud in the quiet, "I've been here 6 months. I've done all my chores. I've sat in meditation with the other monks. I've tried to learn, but you just sit here and watch the clouds. What am I supposed to learn from this? How does watching clouds help me find peace?" Yaoshan didn't look away from the sky. He just pointed, his finger slow, toward a small, fluffy cloud drifting past. "What do you see?" he asked, his voice soft like the wind. Lingwan frowned. "A cloud," he said. "Just a cloud. It's white. It's moving." Yaoshan nodded. "Does the cloud fight the wind?" he asked. Lingwan looked at the cloud. It was drifting gently, changing shape as the wind pushed it, stretching here, shrinking there, never resisting. "No," he said. "It just moves with the wind. It doesn't fight." "Does the cloud cling to the sky?" Yaoshan asked. Lingwan shook his head. "No. It comes, it drifts, it goes. It doesn't stay. It doesn't cling." "Does the cloud judge itself?" Yaoshan asked. "Does it think, I should be bigger, or I should be smaller, or I should be a different shape?" Lingwan paused. He'd never thought about a cloud judging itself. "No," he said. "It just is. Whatever shape it is, whatever path it takes, it just is." Yaoshan finally turned to look at Lingwan. His eyes were calm, like the sky on a cloudless day. "Your mind is like that cloud," he said. "It has thoughts like the cloud has shape. It is pushed by feelings like the cloud is pushed by the wind. It comes and goes, like the cloud drifts across the sky. But you fight it. You cling to it. You judge it. You think, I shouldn't have this thought, or I should be calmer, or my mind is too busy. You fight the wind. You cling to the sky. You judge the shape. And that's why you can't find peace." Lingwan stood there, staring at the cloud. It was still drifting, still changing shape, still moving without resistance. He thought about his own mind, how when a worry came, he'd fight it, try to push it away, call himself weak for feeling it. How when a happy thought came, he'd cling to it, afraid it would leave, and feel sad when it did. How he'd judge every thought, every feeling, every moment as good or bad, right or wrong. He thought about how tired that made him, how much energy he spent fighting, clinging, judging. "But what do I do instead?" he asked, his voice softer now, less impatient. Yaoshan turned back to the sky. Another cloud was drifting past, longer, thinner, gray at the edges. "Watch the cloud," he said, "not with your eyes, but with your mind. When a thought comes, let it be like the cloud. Let it drift. Let it change. Let it go. Don't fight it. Don't cling to it. Don't judge it. Just watch. That's how you find peace." Lingwan sat down on the edge of the porch, beside Yaoshan. He didn't say anything. He just watched the cloud. At first, his mind raced. He thought about his chores, about his family back home, about whether he was doing this right. But he remembered Yaoshan's words. He didn't fight the thoughts. He didn't cling to them. He just watched them, like he watched the cloud, and slowly something changed. The thoughts didn't go away, they were still there, like clouds in the sky, but they didn't feel heavy anymore. They didn't feel like something he had to control. They just felt like thoughts, temporary, fleeting, not who he was. He sat there for a long time, until the sun started to set and the clouds turned pink and orange. When he stood up, his legs were a little stiff, but his mind felt lighter than it had since he'd come to the monastery. "Thank you, Master," he said, bowing deeply. Yaoshan smiled. "Thank the cloud," he said. "That's the lesson Yaoshan taught one. That's as gentle as the clouds he loved to watch. Our thoughts and feelings are not our enemies. They're not something we need to fight or control or fix. They're just like clouds here, one moment, gone the next, changing shape all the while. The peace we're looking for isn't in a mind without thoughts. It's in a mind that can watch the thoughts like we watch the clouds, with curiosity, with acceptance, with no need to change what is." Let me tell you another little story about Yaoshan and the clouds. One day, a storm came to Yaoshan Mountain. The sky turned dark gray, the wind howled, and thick, heavy clouds rolled in so low they seemed to touch the tops of the trees. The disciples hurried inside, closing the doors and windows, afraid of the thunder and lightning. But Yaoshan didn't move. He stayed on the eastern porch, sitting on his wooden bench, watching the storm clouds. A senior monk, worried about him, ran out onto the porch. "Master, you'll get wet," he said, holding a umbrella over Yaoshan's head. "The storm is too strong. Come inside." Yaoshan looked up at him, his eyes calm, even as the wind blew his robe around. "Do the clouds fear the storm?" he asked. The senior monk frowned. "Clouds don't feel fear, Master." Yaoshan nodded. "Then why should I?" he said. "The storm is just part of the sky. The dark clouds are just part of the cloud. They come, they stay, they go. Just like the light ones. I don't need to fear them. I just need to watch them." The senior monk stood there, holding the umbrella as the first raindrops fell. He looked at the dark clouds, how they swirled, how they poured rain, how they rumbled with thunder. But Yaoshan just watched, his face calm, his breath steady. And as the monk stood there, watching Yaoshan watch the clouds, he felt something shift. The fear he'd felt of the storm, of the dark, of the unknown started to fade. He realized that the storm wasn't something to fear. It was just part of the sky. Just like the hard times in life, they come, they stay, they go. They're not permanent. They're not something to fight. They're just something to watch. That's the beauty of Yaoshan's teaching. It doesn't just apply to the small, quiet thoughts. It applies to the big, scary ones. Tutha worries about the future, the pain of the past, the fear of what might happen. Those are just storm clouds. They're darker, heavier, louder, but they're still just clouds. They'll pass. And while they're here, we don't have to fear them. We just have to watch them. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Yaoshan meant. I want you to close your eyes, if they're not already closed, and take a slow breath in and out. Now, I want you to imagine the sky inside your mind. It's a wide, blue sky, calm, peaceful. Now, imagine a small cloud floating into that sky. That cloud is a thought, maybe a simple one, like I'm tired or I need to buy milk. Watch that cloud. Notice its shape. Notice how it moves. Don't push it away. Don't cling to it. Don't judge it. Just watch it drift. Now, imagine another cloud, maybe a bigger one, a little darker. That cloud is a worry like, will I be okay? Or did I make a mistake? Again, watch it. Don't fight it. Don't fear it. Just watch it drift across your sky. Notice that the sky doesn't change, even when the clouds are there. The sky is still calm, still wide, still peaceful. That sky is your true self, the awareness that watches the thoughts, the calm beneath the clouds. The clouds come and go, but the sky stays. Your thoughts come and go, but your true self, calm, peaceful, whole stays. That's the peace Yoshan found. That's the peace you can find too. It's not in a mind without clouds. It's in a mind that knows it's the sky. Yaoshan lived to be an old man. Even as his body grew weak, he still sat on the eastern porch every afternoon, watching the clouds. His disciples would gather around him, sitting quietly, watching the clouds with him. They didn't need him to speak. They just needed to be with him to watch the clouds, to feel the sky, to remember that peace is in the watching, not in the fixing. One day, as Yaoshan sat on the porch, a soft breeze blew, carrying the scent of wildflowers. A small white cloud drifted past, slow and gentle. Yaoshan smiled, and he whispered, so quietly only the closest disciple could hear, "The cloud is home." The disciple looked at him, confused. "Master, the cloud is just a cloud. How is it home?" Yaoshan opened his eyes, which had grown heavy with age, and looked at the disciple. "Because the cloud is in the sky," he said, "and the sky is home. Your thoughts are in your mind, and your mind, the sky's home. You don't need to go anywhere to find peace. You just need to remember that you're already home." That's the final lesson Yoshan taught. Peace isn't a place we go. It's not a goal we reach. It's a remembering that we're already home in the sky of our own minds, watching the clouds drift by. We don't need to change the clouds. We don't need to change the sky. We just need to remember that we are the sky. As we sit with this story, let's take one more slow breath, in, out. Imagine your mind as the skywide.com blue. Imagine your thoughts as clouds light, temporary, drifting. Notice that you are the sky, not the clouds. The sky, the sun, is setting now in our story. The clouds are turning pink and gold, drifting slowly toward the horizon. Yaoshan is still sitting on his bench, his eyes closed, a small smile on his face. The disciples are sitting around him, quiet, peaceful, watching the clouds. The sky is wide, the clouds are soft, and everything is exactly as it should be. You are exactly as you should be. Your thoughts are exactly as they should be. You don't need to change anything. You just need to watch, to breathe, to remember that you are the sky, and that's enough. Let the soft drift of Yaoshan's clouds stay with youth, a quiet reminder that your mind is the sky, calm and wide, even when thoughts drift like clouds through it. Now, let's let our focus gently narrow, like the last ray of sunlight shrinking to a soft point, to a monastery in Guangdong province, where the air is thick with the scent of jasmine and the sound of a distant stream hums through the day. This is where Master Yunmen Wenyin lived, a monk with a sharp mind, a quiet voice, and a unique way of cutting through the clutter of the mind. with a single word, a one-word barrier, as his disciples came to call it simple, unyielding, and powerful enough to stop overthinking in its tracks. Yunmen's monastery was a place of few words. Unlike other monasteries where monks debated scriptures or shared long stories, Yunmen preferred silence. When disciples came to him with questions, big, tangled questions about enlightenment, about the meaning of life, about how to find peace, he rarely gave long answers. More often than not, he'd respond with a single word, mu, or ku, or zao. Just one word, spoken softly but clearly, like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples that disrupted the calm of overthinking, but in the end left the water clearer. The disciples didn't always understand. They'd come expecting explanations, step-by-step guides, profound teachings. Instead, they got a single word. At first, many of them were frustrated. They thought Yunmen was being lazy, or secretive, or just plain rude. They'd walk away muttering, "What does mu even mean? Or how am I supposed to find enlightenment from one word?" But Yunmen didn't mind. He knew that the problem wasn't in the word, was in their need to overcomplicate it. One morning, a young disciple named Jiwan came to Yunmen. Jiwan had been studying Zen for years, and he was known for his love of debate. He could talk for hours about the finer points of Buddhist teachings, about the difference between emptiness and form, about the steps to enlightenment. But all that talking had left him feeling more confused than ever. His mind was like a cluttered room filled with books, papers, and ideas, but no space to breathe. He wanted clarity. He wanted to stop thinking so much. "Master," Zhuan said, bowing deeply, his voice tight with the effort of keeping his questions in order. "I've read all the scriptures. I've discussed the teachings with every monk in the monastery, but I still don't understand. What is enlightenment? How do I know when I've found it? What is the true path?" Yunmen was sitting in the monastery's library, running his fingers over the spine of an old scroll. He didn't look up. He just paused, then said, "Mu." Xuan blinked. He'd expected a lecture, a list of signs, a story, not "Mu." "Master," he said, his voice rising a little, "I'm asking about enlightenment, about the path. What does mu mean? How does that help me?" Yunmen looked up. His eyes were calm, but there was a spark of clarity in them, like he could see the clutter in Shiwan's mind, all the words and ideas piling up. "What does mu mean?" he said, repeating Zhuan's question. "What does enlightenment mean? What does path mean? You fill your mind with words, with definitions, with questions on, you call that seeking the truth, but the truth isn't in the words. It's in the space between them. It's in the quiet when you stop talking, stop thinking, stop asking." He picked up a small ink brush from the table and held it up. "This is a brush," he said. "If I spend all day telling you about its wood, its hair, its history, will that help you paint? Or do you need to stop listening to me and start using the brush?" Xuan frowned. "But I want to understand," he said. "I want to know what I'm looking for before I look for it." Yunmen set the brush down. "You're like a man who wants to know what water tastes like, but spends all day asking people to describe it," he said. "They can tell you it's cold or wet or sweet, but you'll never know what it tastes like until you stop asking and take a drink. Enlightenment is like water. You can talk about it, think about it, ask about it, but you'll never know it until you stop overcomplicating it." until you let go of the words and feel it. He leaned forward, his voice soft but firm. Mu is not an answer, he said. It's a stop sign. It's a way to say enough. Stop thinking. Stop asking. Just be. Shivan stood there, staring at Yunmen. He thought about all the words he'd memorized, all the debates he'd had, all the questions he'd asked. He thought about how tired his mind felt, how it was always racing, always trying to figure things out. He thought about the word mu, short, simple, no meaning to cling to, no definition to debate. And for a second, he stopped. He stopped thinking about what mu meant. He stopped thinking about enlightenment. He just was dot. It was a small moment, just a second, but in that second, he felt something he'd never felt before, lightness. The clutter in his mind seemed to fade, if only for a moment. He didn't understand it. He didn't have a word for it, but he felt it. That's it, he said, his voice quiet, almost disbelieving. Yunmen smiled. That's it, he said. Not the it you were looking for. Not the it with a name or a definition. Just it, just this, just now. That's the power of Yunmen's one-word barrier. It doesn't give you answers. It takes away the need for answers. It cuts through the clutter of the mind, the words, the questions, the overthinking, and leaves you with something simple, the present moment. So often, we're like Ji when we fill our minds with what-ifs and why-nots, with plans and worries and definitions, until we can't see the peace that's right in front of us. We think relaxation is in solving our problems, in finding answers, in understanding everything. But Yunmen teaches us that relaxation is in letting go of the need to solve, to find, to understand. It's in the quiet when we stop overcomplicating life with words. Let me tell you another story about Yunmen and his one-word answers. One day, a scholar came to the monastery. The scholar was a man of many books. He'd spent his life collecting knowledge, writing essays, debating philosophy. He'd heard about Yunmen's one-word barrier and had come to prove that it was meaningless. He wanted to show Yunmen that true wisdom came from complex thoughts, from detailed explanations, from understanding every nuance of every idea. The scholar approached Yunmen in the courtyard, where Yunmen was tending to a small patch of chrysanthemums. Master Yunmen, the scholar said, his voice loud with pride, I've heard you answer every question with a single word. But life is not simple. Truth is not simple. How can you teach anything of value with just one word? Yunmen didn't look up from the flowers. He just said, Ku. The scholar frowned. Ku, what does that mean? Does it mean empty? Does it mean suffering? Does it mean you have no answer? Yunmen stood up, wiping his hands on his robe. He looked at the scholar, his furrowed brow, at his tight jaw, at the way he was clutching a scroll of his own writing, like it was a shield. You want me to explain Ku? He said. I can. I can talk to you about its origins in ancient texts. I can tell you how it's been interpreted by different monks over the years. I can debate its meaning with you until the sun sets. But will that make you wiser? Will that help you find peace? He pointed to the chrysanthemums. That flower is Ku, he said. The dirt it grows in is Ku. The sun that shines on it is Ku. You are Ku. I am Ku. But if I spend all day telling you what Ku means, you'll never see the flower. You'll never feel the sun. You'll never know what Ku really is because you'll be too busy thinking about it. The scholar stared at the chrysanthemum. It was a small flower, yellow and delicate, bending gently in the breeze. He thought about the word ku, and for a second, he didn't try to define it. He didn't try to understand it. He just looked at the flower and felt the sun on his face and heard the wind in the trees. And in that second, he understood, not with his mind, but with his heart. He understood that the truth wasn't in the words. It was in the feeling, the presence, the quiet. He bowed deeply to Yunmen. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft, no longer proud. "I've been reading books for years. Today, you taught me to see a flower." Yunmen smiled. "The flower was always there," he said. "You were just too busy reading to notice it." That's the lesson Yunmen teaches us. The world is simple. Peace is simple. But we make it complicated with our words, our thoughts, our need to understand everything. We build walls of questions and definitions around ourselves, and then we wonder why we can't find peace. Yunmen's one-word barrier is a way to knock down those walls. It's a way to say, enough, stop, be here. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Yunmen meant. I want you to take a slow breath in and out. Now, I want you to think of a question that's been on your mind lately, something you've been worrying about or trying to figure out. It could be big, like will I be happy, or small, like did I make the right choice? Now, I want you to pick a simple word, any word, like moo or now or breathe. It doesn't have to be a Zen word. It just has to be short, simple, no complicated meaning. Now, every time that question pops into your mind, every time you start overthinking it, I want you to say that word to yourself, not as an answer, but as a stop sign, moo or now or breathe. Just one word to cut through the clutter, to remind yourself to stop thinking and start being. Notice what happens. Does the question feel less heavy? Does your mind slow down? Do you feel a little more present? A little more here? That's the power of Yunmen's one-word barrier. It's not magic. It's just simplicity. It's just a way to remind yourself that you don't have to solve everything right now. You don't have to understand everything. You just have to be here. Yunmen lived to be an old man, and his one-word answers became famous throughout China. Monks traveled from far and wide to hear him speak, not because he had grand teachings, but because he had the ability to cut through the noise and show them the simple truth. When he was on his deathbed, his disciples gathered around him, looking sad. "Master," one of them said, "who will teach us after you're gone? Who will help us cut through our overthinking? Who will give us the one-word barrier?" Yunmen opened his eyes, which were weak but still clear. He looked at his disciples, one by one. Then he said, "Moo," and then he closed his eyes and breathed his last. The disciples sat there in silence. At first, they were confused. Then, they smiled. They realized that Yunmen had given them one last lesson. The one-word barrier wasn't something he gave them. It was something they could give themselves. It was in the quiet. It was in the simplicity. It was in the ability to stop overthinking and just be. That's the lesson for us too. We don't need a master to give us a one-word answer. We don't need books or teachings or debates. We just need to remember to simplify, to stop filling our minds with noise, to say enough to the overthinking, the worrying, the need to understand everything. As we sit with this story, let's take one more slow breath. In, out. Pick your simple word now Moo, now, breathe, and say it to yourself, soft and quiet. Feel it cut through any clutter in your mind. Feel it bring you back to the present moment. The sun is low in the sky now in our story. Yunmen's monastery is quiet, no debates, no long speeches, just the sound of the stream, the scent of jasmine, the soft rustle of chrysanthemums in the breeze. A disciple sits in the courtyard, looking at a flower, saying moo to himself when his mind starts to race. He doesn't have all the answers. He doesn't understand everything, but he's present. He's calm. He's at peace. You can be at peace too. Just simplify. Just breathe. Just say your word, and that's enough. Let the simplicity of Yunmen's single word linger in the quiet of your mind, like a soft echo that gently quiets the clutter of overthinking. Now, let's let our awareness expand again, like a slow-breathing lung, to a monastery nestled beside a lake in Jiangsu province. Here, the water shimmers like liquid silver at dawn, and the sound of monks' morning chants mixes with the call of water birds, creating a rhythm that feels like the earth breathing. This is where Master Feian Wenyu lived, a monk with a gentle smile, a patient way of speaking, and a profound understanding of something we often forget. Your mind is not just a place where thoughts live. It is the very world you inhabit. He called it mind as the three realms, the idea that the peace or chaos we feel isn't from the world around us, but from the way our minds shape it. Feian's monastery was a place of small, intentional moments. The monks didn't rush through their days. They moved with care, pouring tea slowly, folding robes neatly, walking along the lake shore with their eyes open to the beauty around them. Feian often said, "The lake doesn't care if you're happy or sad. It just reflects the sky. Your mind is the same. It reflects whatever you let it. If you let it reflect worry, you'll live in a world of worry." Most of the disciples understood this in their heads, but not in their hearts. They'd nod and say, "Yes, Master," then go back to fretting about their meditation, or their mistakes, or the weather ruining their morning chores. They'd see the lake reflecting the sky, but they couldn't see their own minds reflecting their thoughts. One morning, a young disciple named Jingyuan came to Feian, looking upset. Jingyuan had been assigned to tend to the monastery's vegetable gardener task he'd once loved, because it let him feel the dirt between his fingers and watch seeds grow into food. But the day before, a storm had come. Strong winds had knocked over the tomato plants. Heavy rain had washed away the lettuce seeds, and the garden that had once been neat and green was now a mess of broken stems and mud. Master Jingyuan said, his voice tight with frustration, "The storm ruined the garden. All my hard work is gone. I spent weeks planting, weeding, watering, and now it's all wasted. How can I be peaceful when everything I care about gets destroyed?" Feian was sitting on a wooden bench by the lake, watching the water ripple in the morning breeze. He didn't look at Jingyuan right away. He just pointed to the lake. "What do you see in the water?" he asked. Jingyuan looked. "I see the sky," he said, "and the trees, and the clouds." Feian nodded. "What would you see if the sky was dark with storm clouds?" he asked. "Dark clouds," Jingyuan said, "and maybe rain." "And what would you see if the sky was clear and blue?" Feian asked. "Blue sky, sunlight, birds flying." "Does the lake change when the sky changes?" Feian asked. Jingyuan thought. "No," he said. "The lake is still the lake." It just reflects whatever is above it. Phaon turned to look at him. Your mind is the lake, he said. The garden is the sky. When the garden was neat and green, your mind reflected peace. When the storm ruined it, your mind reflected frustration. But the garden didn't change your mind. It was just what your mind chose to reflect. The storm didn't ruin anything. It just changed the garden. Your frustration came from your mind saying, "This should not have happened." From your mind clinging to the garden being perfect, Jingyuan frowned. "But the garden is a mess," he said. "I worked so hard. Isn't it okay to be upset about that?" "Of course it's okay to feel sad," Phaon said. "Sadness is just a thought, but you're not the sadness. You're the lake. You can let the sadness reflect in you, but you don't have to let it become you. You can look at the broken plants and think, this is a mess, and I'm sad. Or you can look at them and think, this is a mess, and I can plant new seeds tomorrow. The garden is the same. The only difference is your mind." He stood up and gestured for Jingguan to follow him. They walked to the gardens, till a mess of broken stems and mud, the soil heavy with rain. Phaon bent down and picked up a small green shoot that had survived the storm. Its stem bent, but its leaves still bright. "Look at this," he said, holding the shoot out to Jingguan. "The storm didn't destroy everything. This is still alive. And even if it had, seeds are cheap. Soil is plentiful. You can plant again. But if you let your mind reflect only the destruction, you'll miss the life that's still there. You'll miss the chance to plant again. You'll live in a world of ruin, not because the garden is ruined, but because your mind chose to reflect ruin." Jingguan looked at the shoot. It was small, fragile, but it was alive. He thought about how he'd spent all morning focusing on the broken plants, on the work he'd lost, on how unfair the storm was. He hadn't even noticed the shoots that had survived. He hadn't thought about planting new seeds. He'd let his mind reflect only the bad end. That's all he could see. "I see now," he said, his voice softening. "The garden isn't the problem. My mind is. I was so busy clinging to how things should be that I couldn't see how things are." Phaon smiled. "That's the three realms," he said. "The realm of suffering when your mind clings to what's gone, or what you want, or what you think should be. The realm of peace when your mind lets go and sees things as they are. And the realm of awakening when you realize you're the one choosing which realm to live in. You don't have to wait for the garden to be perfect to be peaceful. You just have to let your mind reflect peace, even when the garden is messy." That's the heart of Phaon's teaching. The world we live in isn't fixed. It's shaped by our minds. The same situation can feel like a disaster or a chance to grow depending on what our minds choose to reflect. Relaxation isn't about waiting for the world to be right. It's about training our minds to reflect peace, even when the world is messy. It's about realizing we're the lake, not the storm. Let me tell you another story about Phaon and the three realms. One day, a senior monk came to Phaon, looking worried. The monk had been asked to lead the morning chant the next day, a task that usually made him happy, because he loved the sound of the monks' voices coming together. But the night before, he'd caught a cold. His throat was sore, his voice was hoarse, and he was afraid he'd mess up the chant. He was afraid the other monks would judge him, that Phaon would be disappointed, that he'd let everyone down. "Master," he said, "I can't lead the chant tomorrow. My voice is terrible. I'll make a fool of myself. I'll ruin the morning for everyone." Phaon poured him a cup of warm tea and handed it to him. "Drink this," he said. "It will soothe your throat." The monk drank, then sighed. "Thank you, master, but it won't fix my voice. I still can't lead the chant." Phaon smiled. "What if you stop thinking of your voice as terrible?" he said. "What if you think of it as different? The chant isn't about having a perfect voice, it's about heart. The other monks won't care if your voice is hoarse. They'll care that you're there, that you're trying, that you're sharing your heart with them." He pointed to the lake, which was now reflecting the afternoon sun, turning the water gold. "The lake doesn't care if the sky is bright or dim," he said. "It just reflects it. Your voice is the sky. Your mind is the lake. You can let your mind reflect, 'I'm terrible,' and live in a realm of fear. Or you can let it reflect, 'I'm here, and that's enough,' and live in a realm of peace. The choice is yours." The next morning, the monk led the chant. His voice was hoarse, a little off-key, but he sang with all his heart. When he finished, the other monks smiled at him. One even patted his back and said, "Your voice sounded gentle today." It felt like a hug. The monk realized Phaon was right. No one cared about his voice being perfect. They cared about him being present. And for the first time in days, he felt peaceful, not because his voice was fixed, but because his mind had chosen to reflect peace. That's the power of Phaon's teaching. We spend so much time waiting for our voices to be perfect, our meditation to be calm, our lives to be neat, our mistakes to be gone before we let ourselves be peaceful. But peace isn't something we earn when everything is right. It's something we choose, even when everything is wrong. It's something we choose by letting our minds reflect it. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Phaon meant. I want you to take a slow breath in and out. Now think of a small thing that's been bothering you lately. Maybe a messy desk, a missed call from a friend, a task you haven't finished, something that's been making you feel a little frustrated or anxious. Now, I want you to look at that thing like Jinguan looked at the surviving shoot. Instead of focusing on what's wrong with it, "My desk is a mess. I should have called back. I'm lazy for not finishing the task." Focus on what's still good, or what you can learn from it. "My desk is messy, but I know where everything is. I missed the call, but I can call back tomorrow. I haven't finished the task, but I can take it one step at a time." Notice how that changes how you feel. Does the frustration fade a little? Does the anxiety feel less heavy? That's your mind shifting from reflecting chaos to reflecting peace. That's you choosing the realm of peace instead of the realm of suffering. Phaon spent the rest of his life teaching this to his disciples. He'd walk with them by the lake, pointing out how the water reflected the sky, and how their minds reflected their thoughts. He'd remind them that the three realms weren't far-off places, they were right here, in every moment, in every choice they made. When he was old and his body grew weak, he'd still sit by the lake every morning. His disciples would gather around him, and he'd say, "Look at the water. It doesn't fight the sky. It doesn't judge the clouds. It just reflects. Be like the water. Be like your mind. Reflect peace. Reflect love. Reflect the truth that you are enough, just as you are." That's the lesson Phaon leaves us. You are enough, just as you are. Your mind is enough, just as it is. The world around you is enough, just as it is. Peace isn't something you find outside of yourself. It's something you reflect from within. It's something you choose in every moment by how you see the world. As we sit with this story, let's take one more slow breath. In, out. Imagine your mind as the lake, calm, steady, reflecting whatever you let it. Imagine the things that have been bothering you as the sky, sometimes stormy, sometimes clear, but always changing. Remember that you're the lake, not the sky. You can choose to reflect peace even when the sky is stormy. The sun is setting now in our story. The lake is reflecting pink and orange clouds, turning the water into a painting. Phaon is sitting on the bench, his eyes closed, a soft smile on his face. Jinggyuan is beside him, holding a small shoot from the garden, the same one he found after the storm. Now growing into a tall tomato plant. The air is quiet, the mind is quiet, and everything is exactly as it should be. You are exactly as you should be. Your mind is exactly as it should be. The world around you is exactly as it should be. You don't need to change anything to be peaceful. You just need to choose to reflect it, and that's enough. Let the calm of Phaon's lake stay with Yutha, quiet understanding that your mind is the reflection, not the storm, and that peace is a choice you make in every moment. Now, let's let our focus shift to the rhythm of hands and earth, to a monastery in Fujian province, where the sound of axes striking wood, water being drawn from wells, and seeds being planted in soil fills the days with a steady, gentle hum. This is where Master Beijing Weihai lived, a monk with calloused hands, a strong back, and a simple rule that would shape Zen practice for centuries. No work, no food. A rule that wasn't just about earning your meal, was about finding peace in the doing, not just in the sitting. Beijing's monastery was a place of work, not the kind of work that feels like a burden or a race to finish, but the kind of work that grounds you, work that connects your hands to the earth, your breath to the moment, your mind to the task at hand. Every monk, no matter how old or how high their rank, had a job, chopping wood for the fire, carrying water for the kitchen, weeding the garden, mending the roofs. Beijing himself, even when he was well into his 80s, would join the monks every day chopping wood, carrying small bundles of sticks, his hands still strong from decades of work. The disciples sometimes asked why he worked so hard, especially when he was old. "Master," they'd say, "you've taught us everything we need to know. You don't have to work anymore. Let us take care of you." Beijing would smile, wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. "No work, no food," he'd say, "not just for you. For me, too. Work isn't just about getting food. It's about staying present. It's about remembering that peace isn't found in sitting still and doing nothing. It's found in doing something with your whole heart." One summer, when the sun was hot and the air was thick with humidity, a young monk named Dawei joined the monastery. Dawei had come from a wealthy family. He'd never had to work with his hands before. He'd spent his life reading books, writing poetry, talking about philosophy. The idea of chopping wood or carrying water seemed beneath him. He thought that Zen was about sitting in meditation, about quieting the mind, about transcending the physical world. Work, he thought, was a distraction from enlightenment. On his first day, Dawei was assigned to chop wood with the other monks. He picked up the axe, but his grip was loose. He didn't know how to hold it properly. When he swung it, the axe missed the log and hit the ground, sending a shower of dirt up his robes. The other monks laughed, but Dawei felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. He tried again, but this time the axe bounced off the log and nearly hit his foot. He dropped the axe, his hands shaking. "I can't do this," he said, his voice tight. "This is silly. I'm here to learn about Zen, not to chop wood. Why do we have to do this? How does this help me find peace?" Bajing, who had been stacking wood nearby, walked over. He picked up the axe and handed it back to Dawei, his hands gentle but firm. "Hold it like this," he said, adjusting Dawei's grip fingers wrapped around the handle. Elbows slightly bent, shoulders relaxed. "Now breathe, in, out. When you swing, focus on the axe, the log, the sound of the wood splitting. Don't focus on doing it right, or being embarrassed, or this is silly. Just focus on the work." Dawei took a deep breath. He held the axe the way Beijing had shown him. He swung it slowly at first hand. This time, the axe hit the log dead center. There was a loud crack, and the log split into two pieces. "Good," Beijing said. Again, Dawei swung again, and again, and again. At first, his mind still wandered. He thought about how his hands hurt, about how the sun was too hot, about how the other monks were watching him. But as he kept swinging, something changed. He started to focus on the feel of the axe in his hands, the weight of it, the way it moved. He focused on the sound of the axe hitting the wood sharp, clear, satisfying. He focused on his breath, inhaling as he lifted the axe, exhaling as he swung. And slowly, the embarrassment faded. The frustration faded. The worry about finding Zen faded. He was just chopping wood, fully, completely present. When the bell rang for lunch, Dawei was surprised. He hadn't noticed the time passing. His hands were sore, his robes were dirty, but his mind felt calmer than it had ever felt during meditation. "Did you find Zen?" Beijing asked, as they walked to the dining hall. Dawei thought. "I didn't find anything," he said. "I just chopped wood." Beijing smiled. "That's Zen," he said. "Zen isn't something you find. It's something you do. It's in the axe, the log, the breath. It's in the work, when you stop thinking about everything else and just do it. No work, no food isn't just about earning your meal. It's about earning your presence. It's about remembering that peace is in the doing, not in the waiting." That's the heart of Beijing's teaching. Relaxation isn't about escaping the world. It's about engaging with it, fully and completely. So often, we think of relaxation as doing nothing, sitting on the couch, scrolling through our phones, turning off our brains. But Beijing shows us that true relaxation is doing something with our whole heart. It's chopping wood and focusing on the axe. It's washing dishes and focusing on the warm water. It's folding laundry and focusing on the feel of the fabric. It's being present in the small, ordinary tasks of life, not because they're spiritual, but because they're real. Let me tell you another story about Beijing and his no work, no food rule. When Beijing was 85 years old, his health started to decline. His hands shook when he held the axe. His legs ached when he walked, and he tired easily. The disciples begged him to stop working. They said, "Master, you're too old. Let us take care of you. You've earned the right to rest." Beijing refused. "I'm a monk of this monastery," he said. "I follow the same rules as everyone else. no work, no food. One morning, the disciples decided to hide his axe and his water bucket. They thought that if he couldn't work, he'd have to rest. But when Bajing woke up and couldn't find his tools, he didn't get angry. He just sat in his room and refused to eat. The disciples were confused. "Master, why aren't you eating?" they asked. "No work, no food," Beijing said. "I didn't work today, so I won't eat." The disciples felt guilty. They brought back his axe and his water bucket. "Master, please work. Please eat. We're sorry," Beijing smiled. He picked up his axe, slowly, carefully, and walked outside. He didn't chop much wood, just a few small sticks, but he worked, and then he ate. Later, he told the disciples, "It's not about the wood. It's about the commitment to being present. When I work, I'm here fully. When I don't work, I'm not here. I'm somewhere else, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, feeling sorry for myself. Work keeps me here. It keeps me alive." That's the lesson Beijing teaches us. Work isn't a burden. It's a gift. It's a way to stay present. It's a way to connect our bodies and our minds instead of letting them drift apart. In a world where we're always doing but rarely present, where we scroll through our phones while we eat, where we think about work while we're with our families, where we worry about the future while we're in the shower, Beijing's rule is a reminder to slow down, to focus, to be here, in the work, in the moment. Let's try a little exercise right now to feel what Beijing meant. I want you to take a slow breath in and out. Now, bring your attention to your hands. Notice how they feel. Now, imagine you're doing a simple task, something like folding a shirt, or washing a dish, or planting a seed. It doesn't have to be a real task, just imagine. As you imagine doing this task, focus on every small detail. If you're folding a shirt, feel the fabric between your fingers, soft, smooth, slightly stretchy. Notice the color, white, blue, striped. Fold it slowly, first the sleeves, then the bottom, then in half. Listen to the sound of the fabric rubbing together, soft, quiet. Breathe as you fold in, as you lift the shirt out, as you fold it down. Dan, single quotes to think about anything else. Don't think about finishing the task, or doing it right, or what you'll do next. Just focus on the task, on the feel, the sound, the breath. Notice how that feels. Does your mind slow down? Do you feel more present? Do you feel a sense of calm, even though you're working? That's the peace Beijing found in chopping wood. That's the peace of no work, no food, not the work itself, but the presence in the work. Beijing lived to be 91 years old. He worked every day until the end, chopping wood, carrying water, planting seeds. When he died, the disciples found a small note in his room, written in his shaky handwriting. Work with your hands. Breathe with your heart. Be here. That is Zen. That is peace. That's the lesson Beijing leaves us. Peace isn't in the mountains, or in the books, or in the meditation cushion. It's in the axe, the log, the shirt, the dish. It's in the work, when we do it with our whole heart. It's in being here, now, fully and completely. As we sit with this story, let's take one more slow breath. In, out. Bring your attention to the present moment, the feel of the surface beneath you, the sound of your breath, the quiet of the room. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to do anything grand. You just need to be here, to breathe, to be present. The sun is setting now in our story. The monastery is quiet. The monks have finished their work for the day, and they're sitting in the dining hall, eating their meal slowly, talking softly. Beijing is sitting at the head of the table, a small bowl of rice in front of him, a smile on his face. His hands are calloused. His body is tired, but his mind is calm. He's here, fully, completely. You are here, too, fully, completely, in this moment, in this breath, and that's enough. As we close these stories tonight, let's take a moment to notice how you feel. Maybe your body feels heavier, more settled against the bed. Maybe your thoughts are quieter, like a river that stopped rushing and started to flow slowly. That's the gift of these Zen teachings. They don't ask you to be perfect, just to be here, right now. Each story we shared was a little reminder. Peace isn't something you have to chase. It's something you can slip into, like putting on a soft sweater when you stop trying so hard. The monk who said, "Have tea," the one who watched clouds drift, the one who polished a brick, they all knew the same thing. Relaxation is in the ordinary, in the letting go, in the just be. Now, let your breath slow even more, in and out. No more to do, no more to think. The day is done, and you're safe here. Let the last bits of tension melt from your fingers, your toes, your forehead. Let your mind be like an empty sky, no wind, just quiet. That's more than enough. So now, let yourself drift. Let the quiet hold you. Sleep softly and wake tomorrow with a little piece of this peace still with you.